Welcome back. Today's episode, you're going to be learning all about self-defense and personal safety. There's some really great tidbits in here, so stay with us. SAGE is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you. Hi, Emily Celis here, your host. Welcome to another episode of Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. So glad to be with you today and sharing another awesome topic that relates to your physical, mental, and or spiritual health and wellness. Today I have with me Joseph Celis. Hey, Joseph.
Hi.
So glad to have him here today. Today the topic is going to be self-defense, and one of the pillars for Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center is our physical component. And what this is all about is physical safety. And that means your body safety, the area around you being safe, because without that safety, you really can't do all these other things that we do in life. So that's why we're going to be talking about that today. So why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself, Joe?
My name is Joseph Celis. I've been a student and teacher of martial arts for over 25, almost 30 years now. Former law enforcement, and I'm the self-defense instructor for Sage Health and Wellness.
Thanks so much for being here. I think that sometimes I wonder why self-defense, or how you could tell other people. I know that answer to that question, but maybe you can take a minute to introduce the topic of self-defense and why that's important to you.
Well, I've done martial arts since I was a little kid, and when I first started teaching in college, I was asked to write a curriculum for self-defense class, and so I did. I figured, since I knew martial arts, I took different kinds of martial arts for a long period of time, ranging from Taekwondo, Karate, Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, things like that. So I figured, I have some experience. I can make a self-defense class. It's not going to be a problem. And as I was writing the curriculum, I was like, whoa, wait a second. How are all these things gonna work in the real world? How am I going to teach these students that only take this course for a semester to keep themselves safe? Because the point of self-defense is to feel confident, being confident in yourself to protect yourself, protect other people. But you don't want that false confidence. You don't want to learn moves that are so fancy that they take years to master, so on and so forth. And then if a self-defense situation arises, you think you can defend yourself and you try to utilize these moves and they don't work, they're not effective. So it was challenging for me. My first semester teaching self-defense, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I made a lot of mistakes, and 15 years later, I think I worked out a lot of those bugs. I was able to kind of hone my skills and the skills of my students to keep themselves safe, in self-defense situations. So a lot of that involves mindset. Okay, so the difference between self-defense and martial arts, basically, martial arts are systems of combat that were used or utilized or formed hundreds, even thousands of years ago, depending on what martial arts you're taking. And a lot of those systems, they're not applicable today. We have different weapons, we have different mentalities, we have different environments, so on and so forth, right? And so what our self-defense classes primarily do is teach you awareness skills. We teach you what to look for. We teach you mindset. Whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, it doesn't really make a difference. You just have to understand that the world is a relatively good place. Okay, even coming from law enforcement, I see that. In law enforcement, I only dealt with that 1% of the people committing crimes, so on and so forth. So it didn't give me a jaded perspective on society. In a self-defense situation, you have to understand that the world is a relatively good place, but bad things happen. That's the kind of the mindset that you have to have. You know, thinking about when you go into a dark alley, when you go into a club by yourself, when you're walking home from the grocery store in a dark parking lot, or in a parking garage. You know, just, we call it spidey senses, right? When you have that instinctual signal that pops up in your brain. When you feel those things, right, you got to pay attention to them. And we try to hone in on that. We also teach you behavioral characteristics, you know, of criminals. You know, what and how they're moving, ruses, how they're trying to get you to certain locations, so on and so forth. So we talk about a lot of different things, and that's different than martial arts, right? We also try to utilize your instincts as much as possible in the movements that we do in self-defense. So we don't teach complicated movements, right? We teach movements that are based on on reflexes that you're already going to do in that situation. We just kind of hone them to make them work in that self-defense situation.
I wanted to kind of pop in here and just say,
Yeah.
like, that the classes that Joseph teaches, we've gotten such amazing feedback from, that it really brings people to a place of feeling empowered. You know, that they leave your classes feeling so capable and so much safer just from taking this 4-hour class. I mean, it is a 4-hour class, so it's a commitment of time. I think that the cost is very effective for what you're bringing and all of this experience that you're putting together. But it's just been so neat to see the people leave having a very different sense of who they are in the world. Like, it really has shifted the paradigms for a lot of people with how they view themselves, and not having to feel like they can be a victim at any time, you know, being able to really just walk away feeling empowered. So I think that's something, as I've watched you teach this class time and time again, that you do really well, is to really initiate that empowered feeling within people, to feel that they can take control of their own safety no matter what situation. You know, if it's single moms, if it's, you know, an older adult person, if it's someone that has small children that they're taking care of, you know, that they're, you know, not only defending themselves but other people too. And there's so many different situations that these are, you know, blanket ways to be able to go through those different situations.
Yeah.
So I also know, just because I know you, like, that you're so passionate about this, that this topic is something that you just light up when you talk about, and I wanted you to be able to speak to that a little bit, about where that comes from and why you feel so passionate about teaching self-defense.
Yeah, I am super passionate about it. That's the truth, you know. And empowerment is a big deal, you know. Leaving a class empowered, because when you feel confident, when you feel empowered, you're more likely to do things that basically get out of your comfort zone, right? You're more likely to do things that you wouldn't do before, you know. And here at Sage, that's what we want you to do, because we only have one life, right? So you just got to live it to the fullest, right? So if you're living in fear because you don't have the tools to go travel, to feel safe when you're traveling, maybe traveling locally, traveling in a different country, you're probably not going to go, right? If you've been a victim of assault, battery, rape, so on and so forth, that is extremely traumatic, right? And I've had many students over the years be victims of those things, and you know, after class they tell me, hey, you know what, I feel so much more confident. You know, I've had emails from students saying that, you know, it's been months since I've taken your self-defense class, and I feel so confident. I'm doing X, Y, and Z now that I wasn't able to do before. So
Yeah.
those things for me make me want to keep teaching self-defense, and make me want to make the classes better. You know, that motivates me, because I want people to live a full life, follow their bliss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Happiness, you know, that's why I do it.
Yeah, and I think it's been quite astounding, the number of stories, even just in the last year that you've been teaching this at Sage. I know you've been teaching this many, many years before this, but even just at teaching it at Sage, all the different stories that have come up. And if it's not a story of something that has actually already happened to somebody, it's stories about what scary situations they were in where they didn't have that confidence to be able to walk away from that knowing that would not have happened to me. It was like I got out of this by chance, and I don't want something like this to happen to me again, so now I'm taking the class. So I think that's why self-defense, you know, it may not be at the top of your list of things, might not be on your radar for like when you're walking around. I think a lot of times we all kind of walk around with our head in our phone thinking that we live in a really happy place, but a lot of times that can do us wrong, because there are that small percentage of people that are trying to take advantage or looking for those people that are not paying attention. And it's not a scare tactic. You know, we're not here to like make you guys watch this and say, oh my gosh, I'm scared now. Like, I don't want to be scared. But awareness, that's one of the, you know, SAGE is an acronym, and the A stands for awareness. That's another reason I think why this is important. You know, you hear about awareness when you're talking about other things like mindfulness or being more present and this sort of thing. But that's like a foundational part of awareness is your physical awareness, like where you physically are, who's physically around you in your environment.
Yeah, feeling safe around.
Yeah, being able to feel safe. And we do live in a country where we're able to feel safe, thank goodness, you know, for the most part. But it doesn't mean that we are, that we don't have that, the ability to have something happen to us.
Yeah. And you know, just from my experience in law enforcement, whenever someone is a victim of a crime, they're always shocked. Like, I can't believe this happened to me, you know, and I hear, and I've seen story after story about that, you know, because bad things do happen, unfortunately. That's just the way it is.
People.
Yeah, to good people, to anybody.
Yeah,
it just happens, you know.
Yeah, like that saying though, like bad things happen to good people, or you know, you kind of think like, oh, that's not going to happen to me, but yeah, like you said, they're always surprised. They're always surprised that something happened to them.
Yeah,
thinking it's not going to be me.
Yeah, and you know, if what's really important about our self-defense classes is a big takeaway from law enforcement too is, in law enforcement in the academy, you do a lot of scenarios, situational awareness. You run scenarios. There's like actors and things, and then you play your part as a police officer, like in a burglary scene or robbery scene. Then you have to take charge, right? But after completing one of those scenarios, you don't forget your mistakes, okay? Because you make mistakes. No matter what kind of training you have, you make mistakes. You can always do it better, right? And you know, throwing someone into a situation in real life, like the self-defense situation, they're not going to know what to do because they don't have any experiences to pull from, right? So if you don't have any experiences to pull from, and there's a big, scary, suspicious-looking person in a black ski mask coming towards you with maybe a crowbar in their hand or something like that, well, you're going to go to instinct, right? You're going to go fight, you're going to flight, or you're going to freeze, right? That's basically what's going to happen. You're going to try to pull from something inside of yourself from your experience, but in your experience, you've never seen that before, right? So you're not going to know what to do, right? So you're basing your reaction on fight, flight, or freeze, right? So what we try to do is we try to give you experiences to pull from, right? So we go through many different scenarios, right, that are geared to educating you on specific criteria. An example would be situational awareness, ruse, distance. Okay, so each scenario that we teaches you something different in a self-defense situation, right? So when that situation does arise, you have something to pull from, right? You can, somewhere in the back of your mind says, hey, I've done this before, okay? I've made this mistake. This is what I'm going to do now, okay? So that's what gives you confidence, right? Because when you try something and you fail, you usually have experience and you come out stronger at the end. So that's what we try to have for our students.
Right, and that is a good portion of the class. So there's the educational piece, and then there's the practical knowledge piece where you put it to test. And kind of going with that too, I mean, it's not possible that we can come up with every possible scenario that could
No.
happen, right?
Yeah,
Getting
that's
into
right.
I know that you have all this experience with law enforcement, kind of like seeing the mind of a criminal and what they've done, you know, the different things that they have done, and all the testing and training that you have as well, not just on the job training. But these situations, even if it might not be duplicated in your life, that ability, like you're saying, to pull from what do you do when you get into that place where you're going to either fight, flight, or freeze. That's the situation that you're training your brain
Yes.
to be able to move and operate in a more efficient fashion.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that you haven't had that specific situation or scenario that's been tested before, but what you've done is you've gotten into that frightening situation where you're presented with a threat, and then you're able to get out of it.
That's
and that's where you give them the feedback and like the training in that moment.
Yeah.
And where you recreate a scenario that's going to challenge you. And that's not training you can get anywhere else. I mean, this is where do you go where you can do that within a safe environment to be able to test your skills in that way. And it is something that you want to be able to stay on top of, and to be able to, you know, sharpen that skill and the tools that you're creating for yourself. And so at the request of students that have already taken our class, we also offer quarterly refreshers. So we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about the class and how we do it. But I do know that it's important to keep up on that and be able to get tested, you know, test yourself every once in a while, because hopefully, knock on wood, we're not putting these situations where you're being tested in real life. But you've got to be able to use that skill of moving and doing the thing that's going to get you to safety in the situation.
Yeah.
So
We also talk about, you know, self-defense of the law. You know, what criteria do you have to meet for your self-defense to be legal, right? Because that's important. You know, you have to make sure that you are legitimately in fear for your life or for the life of somebody else, right? You have to make sure that you use as much force necessary to defend yourself, but not use excessive force, right? And you have to know, like, after a self-defense situation, how to articulate your self-defense in a police report, in court, and that within itself is very challenging, right? So we drilled that over and over again. You know, an example, I was working a case. It was a self-defense situation. This person was attacked by a transient, a homeless person on the street, right? So I was asking the victim, what happened? Can you tell me what happened? Oh, I don't know. I just saw someone coming at me and I threw a brick at him, right? Well, this day and age when everything is videotaped and audio taped, right? How is that articulation going to hold up in court, right? I don't know. I saw someone coming at me and I threw a brick at them, okay? So in his mind, he was in a self-defense situation and he did what he could do to get out of it, right? But you have to be able to articulate it, right, in a way that'll save your life in court as well, right? So you have to be able to talk about the location. You have to talk about the suspect's activity, why you're in fear for your life, the distance that you had between you and the suspect. How did that suspect cover that distance? So on and so forth. There's so many things that you need to articulate, right? And then your self-defense action within self. Well, where did you get training for that? Like, why did you think that was okay to do that? And then you have to be able to present that to the police officer. You have to be able to present that in court. So we talk about that a lot as well, because it's one thing, to fight the battle of defending yourself, and then you have to go to court for it as well, and then you have to fight another battle, right? And what really sucks is that you are the victim, and you have to constantly defend yourself for these things, So it's important, just like anything else, right? You just need education. And where are you going to get this education from? You can read it. You can read it in books. You can read it. You can talk about it with other individuals who experienced it, or you can take different self-defense classes. Okay, and that's what we offer here as well. So.
And I do want to say too, I think something that the people who've taken the class really benefit from and appreciate is the fact that you're available to them for consultation at any time. And that's
Definitely.
been something people have really utilized you for. I know that comes up a lot of times during class, and that's something you kind of say, hey, I'm totally available to answer any questions and help you out after, and even days after, or weeks or months or years after, that
That's
you're,
right.
he's kind of your go-to person, and it's so valuable to have that, to have someone that knows the law inside and out, has a lot of experience with it, and has all of this history with teaching and training in self-defense and martial arts.
Thanks.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about our classes, what would someone, I mean, I know you've been already kind of covering some of the things that we do cover, but is there anything else that you'd want to add of what someone could expect to learn in one of our self-defense classes?
There's so many things. Basically, we talk about how to empower yourself, okay? And empower yourself the right way, giving yourself the confidence, the know-how, the experience to protect yourself. Not a false confidence, though. Okay, so we teach you self-defense so you can get out of a self-defense situation as safely as possible, or teach you enough awareness so you will never be one in the first place. Okay, I can't say never, right? So it'll reduce your chances significantly, let's say, of being in a self-defense situation, right? But I mean, you just look outside, people are on their phones all the time, just walking around on their cell phones. That's easy prey for anybody, anywhere, right? So we just talk about different life hacks to not do that, okay? And a big thing that we do is we teach you tools, okay? And why are tools so important, right? Tools are important because for people, it helps us do things more efficiently, faster, right? So if you wanted to nail a nail into a board, you'd use a hammer, right? If you wanted to screw a screw into a board, you'd use a screwdriver, because it's just so much simpler, right? So we go over different tools, self-defense tools. We go over OC spray, pepper spray, right? We go over taser. We go over tactical flashlight. We go over tactical pen. And what else do we go over?
I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then we go over the hand-to-hand combat techniques as well. So we do a whole bunch of different things, because tools, they'll help get the job done. It's an equalizer, right? If you are soaking wet 95 pounds, even if you're a black belt or have multiple years in martial arts or whatnot, if you're going against somebody that's 350 pounds, right, you're in trouble. Okay, so learning how to utilize tools like the ones that I just talked about will help to equalize that playing field, I guess, as much as possible. So we're really big on self-defense tools and tactics as well.
Right, the tactics is a big part. And then there's also the, discussing different victim positions. I know that that's also something that you go over in the class, like what are the most common victim positions, and that's part of the physical training aspect.
Yeah, so we talk about like common grabs, like how a criminal, an attacker, a predator would grab you to take you in a secondary location, to do you harm or whatnot. We talk about how to escape and how to possibly submit somebody from different positions, like mount. That's when you're on your back and someone's straddling you on your belly, right? How to get out of that, how to get out of different chokes, things like that. How to escape the rape victim position, so also called the guard position. So when your legs are straddling, when you're on your back and your legs are straddling somebody else and they're in between your legs, how would you get out of that position as well? How to submit somebody using like an arm lock or a choke or something from that position. And we try to break down those moves as simply as possible so you can learn them, right?
And I think that's the part where people leave the class feeling really empowered. Like it's all of a sudden at the end of the class, it's like, wow, I was able to, if you're kind of a smaller frame female and then you're able to get someone off of you who is over 200 pounds, like pretty easily, I think that's where there's a lot of empowerment that comes in. And I think this is the part for me. I've never done this kind of training in the past, with self-defense, or I haven't done martial arts and that sort of thing. So there's kind of this sense of like, this is different, being on a mat or kind of doing this type of like hand-to-hand combat, that sort of thing. But the way Joseph teaches it is just, it's very understandable. I mean, you've spent so many years on the mat. This is just second nature for you, and being able to do that. So we do have that physical component where there is the mat on the floor, and then you pair up. It's like kind of a physical training class that you would be in, where you help pair them up and then help teach them how to do those different moves.
Yeah.
And it is so empowering to know that you can be able to get out of that situation. Excuse me. So yeah. So I think that kind of covers everything that we do in the class. And so that's the first class that is 4 hours long, and then there's an advanced level training class that it comes after that.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about what you cover in that class?
So for advanced self-defense, we go over more of those situational awareness techniques, different scenarios. I want to talk about the scenarios, but yeah, we go over different scenarios to kind of train your brain, to give you experiences again, to keep in your back pocket if those situations were to arise, and just common situations. What do you do in an elevator? What do you do at an ATM, grocery store parking lot, in a vehicle, right? So different scenarios like that we go over. We go over more advanced self-defense techniques. So the first class, there's a lot of talking about, obviously, because we talk about law, we talk about tactics, we talk about awareness, we talk about so many different things.
Articulation.
Mm-hmm. But the second level is a lot less talking and a lot more doing, right? But in doing so, you really have to have a base of knowledge, which is self-defense level 1. Once you get into level 2, we'll be doing different chokes, different arm locks, different escapes, different things like that. That would be a lot better learned if you had a base, which is self-defense level 1. So we really, even if you have experience in martial arts or things like that before, we don't advise that you skip level 1 to go into level 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so information heavy in the first one, but then it's also balanced out by like being able to put that to the test and check those skills out before you leave.
Yeah.
So we do provide you a certificate of completion when you're done. You feel really proud about getting that, which is awesome. And you do get your own OC pepper spray in the first level with your fee. And we also teach you how to use that with inert pepper sprays. If you've never sprayed a pepper spray before, Joe goes over that and gives you a chance to use that and feel comfortable knowing that you can deploy that tool if you ever needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do have those quarterly refreshers as well, every 3 months that you can come, if you've already taken at least the level 1, that you're able to come to these quarterly refreshers and just sit in on getting more scenario testing and more comfortable with being able to put those skills to the test.
Yeah.
So we will have made self-defense gurus out of you guys by the time you're done, because everyone that does come just feels so empowered and capable, and then has to keep that up as well.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you want to add about our self-defense courses?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I know that you have a lot of really great quotes that you put into the class. I don't know if you can think of one off the top of your head that has to do with self-defense. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I know there's some one about being a gardener in the better to be a warrior. I can't think of how it goes. Do you know that? Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I there are a lot of quotes that we go over in class for the mindset portion, but most of the quotes basically it says hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. I mean, that's a very common quote that you guys are pretty much aware of. The other ones are, they say the same exact thing, but they're from different cultures, utilized from different martial arts and stuff like that. Basically, they're doing the same thing. It's better to be prepared, right, than not, no matter what situation you're in, right? It's just to keep you safe.
Exactly.
Right? To keep you safe, to keep your family safe. So think about it, right? It's one thing to be walking around and not having that confidence, not having that awareness for yourself, but you bring in your family now. So having that confidence, that empowerment to be able to take care of yourself and your family is huge. So
Yeah. And I think you nailed it with that word confidence. I mean, and that's where I do feel that this is across the board a really helpful class for anyone who's seeking to improve their own self-confidence. Because when you have confidence about being able to handle yourself in a situation, or just confidence in walking around in your day-to-day life, because you know that you're safe, that's huge. It's really huge.
yeah, and it's confidence that we promote. It's not arrogance, right? So we teach you how to be humble. The humility aspect of it as well. This is self-defense. It's not for anything else than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and stay tuned for our next episode. And if you would like to go onto our website to learn more about these self-defense classes and when we're offering the next ones, go ahead and check out www.sagewellnessctr.org. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.